Hi, welcome to the second week of CAT 125R. We made it! We made it through the first week and through some of the technical hurdles that I know we were all experiencing as a group. Thank you very much for your patience as we sorted things out. This is the first time that an online class has been taught at UCSD. So, as you know, there are a couple technical glitches, but things seem to be all corrected now. It looks like you all are getting into the course site just fine. I see you posting in Piazza and looking through the course materials, so that's all fantastic. I'm really happy about that. If you have any technical questions or questions of any kind as the quarter goes on, don't hesitate to ask me or your TAs or the group. You can post questions in Piazza. You can reach us via email, so don't hesitate to do that. So what we're going to do with this video this week is introduce you to some of the themes you'll be working on in the course for this module, the title of which is Facilitating Meaningful Feedback. So I'm going to try to connect things to what we talked about last week when I introduced you to this idea of rhetoric and some terms related to rhetoric. So we're going to think about how can you think about feedback rhetorically, and we're also going to talk about your first major assignment, the personal statement assignment. So let's get started. Let's start our introduction to this module by looking at some definitions of rhetoric. These definitions of rhetoric are somewhat broader than more classical definitions of rhetoric you may have seen in the past from Aristotle or even Plato. Here we have one definition from Stanford researcher Andrea Lunsford, who describes rhetoric as the art, practice, and study of human communication. So a really broad definition there, and that's really gonna be the way we are thinking about rhetoric in this class. Another definition from Lloyd Bitzer, who talks about rhetoric as a mode of altering reality through discourse. So something else to be thinking about, how do you create change through discourse? When we're thinking about rhetoric in this way, one useful tool is the rhetorical triangle. We're thinking here about rhetoric focused not on persuasion, but on ways communicative acts are created and adapted according to purpose, context, message, and audience. So here we think about the context. Let's use your critical selfie assignment as an example here. So we had multiple contexts that you were asked to think about in that assignment. The context of a Facebook profile photo, the context of a bank company photo. And with those different contexts come different ways of thinking about your audience, different purposes that the photographs may have, and your position as a rhetor might change even as a result. You'll see that your lectures this week are focused on feedback, so we can think rhetorically about feedback as well. So let's think about how you might be able to provide feedback to your peers on Piazza, and we'll use the rhetorical triangle to help us think about that. So for the context here, we have Piazza. The rhetor, in this case, would be you, and you can think about how you define yourself as a rhetor in this context. As a student, as a peer, you can define that in multiple ways. Think about the audience. So you have actually multiple audiences for the Piazza feedback you might give someone, right? You have the original poster. You have your other peers in the class who can also see that feedback. You have your TAs. You have me, right? So there are multiple layers that you'll want to think about when you're composing feedback in Piazza. And when you're writing someone a comment in Piazza, you want to think about your purpose too. So you'll learn about evaluative feedback in your videos this week, in your lectures this week. And that's not exactly the kind of feedback you'll be giving in Piazza, right? Instead, the focus is going to be on creating dialogue, right? Having a conversation, building community. So that's different than the sort of evaluative feedback where you're suggesting changes or offering criticism of a piece of work. As we're thinking about rhetoric, the rhetorical triangle, and feedback, I also want you to kind of keep your eye a week or so ahead on the first long writing assignment you'll be working on, the personal statement. So the personal statement assignment, you're building toward it right now by working on the what I learned in college, what I learned outside of college and inside of college Piazza posts. And the personal statement assignment, it really clearly defines a rhetorical context for you, right? It creates a situation to which you are responding. And that situation is application to graduate school, professional school, or some kind of scholarship organization. So within that rhetorical situation, you have a few things to focus on, which we can think about rhetorically. The assignment asks you to have a coherent focus, to support with concrete details, and to support the professional or academic portrait of yourself that you want to present. So if we think about that in relation to the rhetorical triangle, right, we talked about the context. The purpose or the message here is going to be a persuasive purpose, right, to convince an audience that you are the best candidate for the position in the graduate program, for the scholarship, whatever the case may be. This week, really, as you're working on that Piazza post on what I learned outside of college, you're working on defining the rhetor, right? And what I mean there is you're coming up with those concrete details that you're going to present that will allow you to inform the rest of the piece, right? How are you going to frame the piece? What are the choices you're going to make? And how are you going to use the concrete details of your experience to meet the expectations of the audience, maybe challenge the expectations of the audience, right? But what you're doing now is sort of building some of the raw material you'll need to enter into this rhetorical situation. So good luck as you start the process. Let me know if you have any questions. Post on Piazza and keep up all of the good work. Thanks.